The older I get, the more interested I get with the art that ends up sticking with me. Why do I vividly remember seeing Iron Man fall out of Avengers Tower when I was 7 years old? Yet at the same time, why can't I remember a single scene from Turbo? Yes, the movie about the snail. It only came out a year later, yet I can't remember a single thing. I think that is such an interesting concept because the pieces of art like Turbo that didn't end up sticking with me aren't invalid. Maybe they aren't the thing that clicked with me, but for someone else it might be one of their favorite movies or one of their favorite pieces of art, and I have no reason to crap on it. All I can do in my life is tell you about the pieces of art that stood out for me for better or for worse. And games like Disco Elysium have stuck with me for years, not because of the stories that they are telling, but for what they are saying and the emotions that I felt. Everyone who has played this game is going to tell you, when you look at Disco Elysium, it's a game that right off the bat, if you look at it, it might be a game that you're going to write off. It's not a shooter, it's an RPG, and it isn't known for its fast-paced or riveting gameplay. It's known for you reading a wall of text for about 25 hours. But in there is something so special with how maturely it treats you as an audience member. How it values your intelligence and how it knows that you are smart enough to understand the depth of the subject matter that it's going to explore throughout the narrative. Not everyone is going to love Disco Elysium, but I think you're lying to yourself if you're saying you weren't changed a little by playing it, and that is why I want to look back at this game, because just like the best pieces of art, Disco Elysium is a game that makes you think, and it also changes you. So this is why Disco Elysium proves video games are art. Disco Elysium released in 2019. It's a point-and-click RPG, and if you know me at all, you know these aren't really my type of games because they aren't really the genre that I'm used to. Some kids grow up playing CRPGs on their computers. I actually had a good childhood instead and played Raving Rabbids on the Wii, but I think that makes me a great person for this because it shows that anyone can break into this game in this type of format. Disco Elysium uses the genre and uniqueness of the RPG format to create a narrative that is individual to you. When you start off the game, you are a detective that is blackout drunk who can't even remember his own name. You just know that he can't wipe this smile off his face and that your partner is waiting for you down in the lobby. If it isn't clear, this game is one where the narrative is about finding yourself. Most video games have self-insert characters that allow you to put any character traits you want onto them. And whatever you choose, your character is going to be pretty much the same, and every character in the game is going to treat your individual character the same and my individual character the same, because the game doesn't really care what our main character acts like. Disco Elysium, though, puts the humanity back in the characters. Disco Elysium says, look at this man. Your choices are going to change who he is, for better or for good. People know who you are and how you used to act in the game world. So are you going to end up conforming to those terrible habits that this man has clearly had, or are you going to try to improve your life at the pain it costs you in the gameplay? Do you act reckless? Do you act mean? Are you a jerk? Are you kind? Who are you? Who are you going to be? And how can you solve this mystery if you can't even figure out what your name is? What this does is create one of the most empathetic protagonists I've ever seen in a video game because of how sad and depressed and pathetic he is. So how are you able to fix your life in this game? Well, you do what anyone does in real life. Go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you try to live your life one choice better at a time. Choice is one of the largest themes throughout this game. You are constantly questioning everyone throughout this town because you're in a detective narrative, and you are trying to forward the mystery, and you see how everyone in this game that you meet has different logic and politics and identities based upon their choices that you learn from in their conversations. The entire gameplay loop is centered around this system of you walking up and interviewing everyone, and just looking for clues. Sometimes they ask you a question and you don't know what to say, so you have a D&D type of style where you have to roll to see if you're able to answer it right, and you'll either get it or you'll fail. And your struggle to get through these conversations and show who you are molds what type of person you are. There is this tension with every conversation of how are you going to present yourself and how does this move the case forward? Are you going to end up putting yourself a step back with the character now closing off relationships with you? Or are you possibly with your humor going to somehow break through and find a new lead that's going to help you further the case? No one plays the game the same or in the same order, and every interaction is different for every player. And like in real life, you're molding your perception with every other character in this game one conversation at a time. You grow relationships with your partner Kim, and you realize what relationships matter to you more as you begin to realize, like in real life, which relationships in the game are you going to prioritize first and what people come first in your life. What that ends up creating is a very individual experience for every player who tries to play this game. Individuality is a concept that video games try to tap into but aren't always able to due to how difficult it is. As a writer, how do you create a character with their own characteristics and abilities and choices that they have made, but also allow this random person who is playing your game to put their influence into the character as well? It is so hard to do that, to allow a person to mold and shape a character that they are playing as. But if you're able to do it like this game, you're able to create a game where we are all completely different individuals when we end up playing it. No matter how many mistakes we made, time heals all wounds in this game. We learn and grow over a period of a week. Some clues can only be found in day 3 or 4. Relationships can only be developed over time as well. It takes time to talk to people and to grow that relationship and to figure out what's really going on in this town so you can solve this mystery. It takes time for you to drop that loser alcoholic that was on the floor at the beginning of the game and to be the detective who understands himself and learns how to love again and to embrace the man that stares back at him in the mirror. Harry's story is so triumphant because he is a reflection of us. A person that has stumbled through the world, that falls over and over again, but he's picked up by those who care for him. When you finish Disco Elysium, it feels like a triumph. It is ridiculously satisfying and one of my favorite endings in video games. That individual journey is why so many adore this game, because you feel that aspects of you are so interwoven into Harry, and that is why some don't like this game. Some people want pure escapism, or a game is on rails, tells them what to do, and says fun's gonna be delivered every 20 minutes. But this game takes its time, and I think it delivers an experience that stays with you for much longer, and its enjoyment is much deeper. The narrative can be loose with where it tells you where you need to go. You run into dead ends, and if you love highly structured games, the right way to play with min and maxing, then you might not click with this because there's no really right way to play this game, because you need to put yourself into it. Or maybe you just don't like this game like I do because you get motion sick while you're playing it and can only play it for 2 hours at a time before you yak. But I think if you haven't played this game, you should try it because you might love it. Disco Elysium: The Final Cut is a game that everyone should at least try. It is such an emotional power punch of a game that is hard to explain off its gameplay alone. It's more than that, because it has such an emotional truth of beauty and love and individuality and progress that you need to play through to fully understand. No matter how many times you fall, you can pick yourself up, and there's something truly beautiful to that, and you see it over 25 hours. Please play Disco Elysium, and even if it isn't your favorite piece of art of all time, it's something that I think you won't be able to forget about. And that is why it's one of the most powerful pieces of art to ever be produced in video games. But also you won't be able to forget this game because after you beat it, you keep getting like Disco Elysium edits and like 4-hour video essays, but hey, I'm not complaining. There's a lot of smart people out there and I love watching those videos.